Welcome to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Robert Winters.
I'm Patrick Barrett.
And Patrick has been here before, so welcome back.
Thank you
Mr.
so
Barrett.
much. I think you could tell how much I've aged by watching past Cambridge Inside Outs.
Yeah, we're
Looking
doing
a little
everything
bit-
we can to aid
Yeah,
you as
some
rapidly
trouble,
as
some
possible.
trouble spots around here.
Oh yeah.
If I may.
Oh, you may.
Happy anniversary, Norma Jean. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you.
Norma Jean is Patrick's wife and a wonderful person.
And a good sport. Today's their anniversary, and here I am.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, one of the because I know we are one of the two people who occasionally go up to city council meetings.
Occasionally, that's true.
I go there a little bit less lately than I have.
Word on the street is everything's fine. Everything's working out real good.
Right. All right, but there's one item that's been relatively controversial and will continue to be controversial. I'm not even quite sure what its current status is. Is this affordable housing overlay proposal, or so it is called?
Its current status is going to the ordinance committee, but if you watch if you can feel the temperature of the room, I would say passed within 2 months.
But here's the thing that's funny about it is that, so you pass it to the ordinance committee. So did they pass it to the ordinance committee as a zoning petition?
I believe so.
Because the usual procedure is what you do is you forward the committee, housing committee report to the full city council. The report is received with an order that then says we will now refer this to the planning board and to the ordinance committee as a zoning petition. The ordinance committee can't really do that. Right?
No.
It has to be referred to the full city council.
I don't know
first.
from a advertising position what their obligation is. I think they would at least have to be in the Chronicle for 2 weeks prior to any ordinance committee hearing happening.
Right.
So,
Well, my guess is, though, that in fact, I thought they would do sort of a late committee report to try and railroad it through at the meeting last night that I wasn't at. But then, if not, it'll show up next week, and then it'll be officially in the queue.
right.
And then, they'll take it from there. But so the latest language, I heard they were continuing to put in little amendments.
Yeah,
after
so
the bill.
there was a little crib sheet that they threw out with some slight tweaks to language and to this and that. I think like the general idea of the overlay, for those who do not know that this is coming, is to really create 2 tracks of zoning for the city.
Yeah.
One for affordable housing developers and one for the rest of us.
Right.
And the tweaks that they added in their crib sheet were confusing to me, and I'm an attorney and I dabble with zoning, as you know.
And in fact, one of his petitions passed unanimously last night.
Yes, that's
Yes.
true. I think that's my hat trick.
All right, here we go.
But I think the controversy is, it's a shame because before there was even zoning language, it was like Hatfields and McCoys. Everyone was either for it or against it without even knowing what it did. And being sold as this sort of emergency response to a housing crisis in our city and Massachusetts, I guess, and that would basically give affordable housing developers the ability to ignore current zoning and to follow a different guideline set provided by the city, which increases height and density depending on where you are at different levels.
Right.
And removes, which I think is the most egregious, the ability for any resident to bring to the planning board an appeal or to disagree in any way with
Right.
what's being brought on.
Right, you're not allowed to disagree.
There is no appeal
Yeah.
process. So it's, if you're a homeowner and you want to build an extension to your kitchen, everyone and their sister can show up and say, oh, we don't really think you should do that because blah, 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 blah. For the affordable housing developer, if he wants to knock down your neighbor's house and build a 4-story quadruple density housing complex, you basically have no say.
When I was on the housing working group of Envision Cambridge, where this was supposedly coming out of, right? And there's a lot that could be said about that process.
Yeah.
But one of the points I made at that time was, let's just say you have a neighbor, 2 neighbors live side by side. One person wants to put a dormer on their house. They have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The BZA says, you can't do that, tough luck, that's it. And then the neighbor sells their house to one of these affordable housing developers, who promptly goes and puts in like double, triple, or more of density, cuts out setbacks, basically blows away anything the reasonable homeowner wanted to do because they wanted to do a little extension to support their family.
And that's like what's really stuck in my craw as far as what's wrong with the overlay. I'm all for density, and I think I've advocated for it. I've brought zoning petitions and passed them to double, triple density in Central Square. What I don't like is that, I think it's interesting is that the housing affordable overlay has identified all the problems any developer, any homeowner in the city faces when it comes to development. But the city council has decided that the only people who really need to have access to that relief are affordable housing developers.
Right.
To solve a housing crisis that's really not solvable by Cambridge alone, but also there's a whole host of homeowners and property owners and developers and everyone under the sun who works here who would also benefit greatly from all of that and add housing and all the things that they say that they want. But why, and I've had to get a variance or two in my time. Why should I have to go and get a variance and prove that the soil conditions and the topography of the land is such that I have a hardship that you have to grant me relief for a setback or that dormer that you wanted?
Right.
Yet the affordable housing developer can say,
Just walks right in, says,
I'm
give
gonna
me
do what I want.
everything, and that's that.
and the best part in the review process, they have to go to the planning board, I think once or twice, and then it's at their own discretion.
Yeah.
Could you imagine as a homeowner saying, you know what I need to do? I want to go back to the planning board and see how they feel a year later about
Yeah.
the changes I've made to my project.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Never gonna happen.
honestly, I mean, if they wanted to obliterate zoning, they should just obliterate
Yeah,
zoning
I'm all for
entirely.
that.
because-
Anarchy. Here we go.
But at least don't just do it for one, not the other.
Right.
The other thing too is that, and it's one of the places where I lose my respect for city councilors in a dramatic way, which is that they don't understand how problems actually get solved. All right, so let's just say you've decided that the demand for housing in Cambridge is superbly high. So and there's a sort of a static amount of housing supply for people to fight over, whether it's affordable housing or not. And what you do is you say, okay, I'll tell you what, let's not in any way try and put any pressure on any of the other surrounding communities to do their share. We're just going to solve this problem here ourselves.
Right.
So we're going to build, building here, and any notion that there's only going to be a handful, I think, is complete fiction because they're already trying to develop revenue sources to do this in a much grander way. But the thing is then what you're basically putting a sign up right on the doorway to Cambridge that says, "Hey, everybody, come here and demand even more from us."
Well, if you're in
So you'll end up with actually an even greater demand as a result of the solution.
They're only in consultation with 4 affordable housing development groups. That's not to say that you and I couldn't open up, Robert and Patrick's good old timey affordable housing development co-op and have at it. But the real, the other issues with this proposal is that they're selling it as if it is going to somehow equalize zoning across the city and take my neighborhood, Riverside, and places like Cambridgeport, the Port neighborhood in North Cambridge, who have the lion's share, 30 to 36% of all affordable housing in the city, and then say, oh, now West Cambridge is going to get affordable housing.
But that's not how it'll work.
No, because if it costs me $10 million to buy a piece of land in West Cambridge, and it costs me $5 million to buy the same piece of land in East Cambridge, which actually is a little bit less than that if you look at the numbers, I'm always going to build in East Cambridge because makes more economical sense.
And you'll produce more affordable housing to serve more people. So from a moral point of view, it's more justifiable to continue to build what they're building today. And that's really how it's going to work.
A great sort of example of the affordable housing meets the road finance reality. No Money Connolly's grand proposal for the courthouse, the most expensive affordable housing project ever proposed on the face of the earth. Right. It's great to say we're going to take the courthouse and we're going to turn it into affordable housing, but when it costs $1 million a unit, why on God's green earth would you ever do that?
Right.
And further, if I could quadruple the amount of housing built in Medford or in another neighboring town, why would I not move my dollars there? Because I'm serving more people and I'm actually expanding on the housing stock in an area that has less than we do.
Now, Patrick, this is really where the fatal flaw in your argument lies. Is that you seem to be basing this on stupid things like practicality and financial sense.
That's why that's why I'm not council material guy.
Right. I mean, honestly, if you're a good politician, you understand that actually solving problems isn't the point. It's being known as the person who's championing this or that issue.
I hear what you're saying. So for Barrett 2019, I need to say mini golf courses for everybody,
right.
Barbecue places where you want them, and bowling alleys all the time.
That's right. And
Barrett,
even if you
2019.
can't achieve any of these, as long as you're known as the guy who wants to deliver it.
Oh, I've wanted it, but the city council and the state. Yeah,
Oh,
we had a home rule petition to
that's
have
right.
bowling alleys everywhere.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried.
Oh, yeah. And you can always blame Trump, too.
Oh, why not?
There we go. You know.
It's low hanging fruit, really.
Yeah. So anyway, there are some issues with this, and you know, I've certainly been pretty outspoken about some of my objections to it.
Which is brave of you, honestly, because I think the dynamic right now is you go to city council, there's a bunch of guys there, and I love Jesse, you guys kind of ABC, you're kind of weird, but
I know.
I know. They put stickers on you and say, I'm for this, and you know, people are showing up thinking that they're going to get a house tomorrow, and they're just being lied to.
Well, you know, actually, that's the interesting thing to me is, you know, and again, not to be too much of a classifier here, but at the hearings that I did go to, what I saw was sort of a lot of millennial, you know, work in the tech industry type of people.
I think millennials, isn't it like the next generation? I think millennials are
I don't know,
40
it's like
now.
post-millennial, what do you call them, right? Yeah, but they wear that little ABC sticker,
Generation Z,
you know,
or-
saying how much, you know, they want it really in favor of affordable housing, whatever. And I don't doubt that they want affordable housing. But the thing is they're not going to get this affordable housing.
No.
You know, basically, I think there's a sort of a shell game that continues to go on. When people don't, I mean, I try to make a kind of a linguistic
So let's just-
distinction between subsidized housing versus affordable housing. I mean, affordable housing was like what I did when I came to Cambridge and I found an apartment that was affordable. That was affordable housing. And people often confuse the notion about rents being affordable, which is a goal I think everybody agrees with.
Yeah.
And then basically transforming privately owned property into social ownership under the guise of affordable housing.
Well, that's that's where we use that sort of council disqualifying pragmatism, and you know, when I was a younger lad and I lived in the city and I worked at Jillian's. I was a food runner, a waiter, a bar back. I sat in a hot tub one night for $400. Hey, Fleischman, and you know, I lived in an apartment in the Fens with 4 of the dudes.
Yeah.
The apartment was expensive. It was just me living there, but we lived with 4 of the dudes,
Right.
and it worked. It was disgusting, and I was glad when I was done with it. But that's what made the city affordable.
But that's what affordable housing is to people, most people. And I think when the city does a survey and they say, what do you think is the biggest issue? They say affordable housing. I believe, I'm not doing my own survey.
Mm-hmm.
I got no time for that. But the thing is that I think what most people really what they're saying when they say they want affordable housing is they don't want their rents to be so high.
Yeah.
You know, and one way, you know, the traditional way you dealt with that is you packed in roommates.
Right. You don't want the rent to be so high, but
and that works.
On the same token, like when I was a waiter, and it's not too different now. I made $2.43 an hour. You know, if we had a busy night, I probably made closer to like $30 an hour. But if we had a terrible night, I made $2.43 an hour. So you know, there's an adjustment that needs to be made there as well. But if we don't build any more housing, or if we all create just only subsidized housing, and can I say, God damn it, the council needs to say market rate housing 5 times a day. Market rate housing, build it, because that's what becomes the affordable housing in the future, and that is the only thing that's going to diffuse the value in the market.
Yeah.
And it's working right now because we've been building like gangbusters in Boston and in Cambridge to some degree, and the rents are stabilizing. The rents are not shooting through the roof, especially in what's the B class and C class housing, which is housing that's been around for about 40 plus years. But it's the new stuff, the fancy stuff that you get those, you know, what is it, $2,800 for a studio apartment. That is BS outside of that marketplace. Total fabrication.
But what I would say, and you've actually pointed out to me, and I agree.
Wow, look angry.
The distinction between housing, new housing, and new luxury housing isn't really that much. It's like you put in the fancy countertop.
What the heck is luxury housing, Robert? What is it?
To me, luxury housing there's the concierge and the swimming pool and the athletic court. All right, that's luxury. But if it's just an apartment building where you've got stainless steel refrigerators and a granite countertop, that's called housing.
Yeah.
That's not luxury housing. It's luxury housing with nice granite countertops.
And for you viewers,
excuse me, it's housing with granite countertops.
For you viewers at home, all 3 of you who watch HGTV, granite is is super cheap. It's not expensive. It's like
Right.
maybe $1 more than Formica.
Right.
It's just
exactly.
not
So it's really it's more of a salesmanship.
no, but it's used
Yeah.
used as language against the creation of housing. They say,
Right.
well, they're only building luxury. Well, what if I called it mid-grade crap housing? Is that a
Right.
good way to market it?
That's the problem. It's all about marketing. It really is all about marketing. But I've always understood it. When you build something new, that's when it's most valuable, and then it would depreciate over time. So new housing is supposed to be somewhat expensive because it costs money to build it, right?
So
Pretty obvious.
costs money
right?
to build it. Thank you.
Right.
And if I'm a city councilor and I am tied in with the unions as well, you're looking at like a 35% markup on whatever you're building as well. So even if you're building just an open shop, which some people do, you're looking at like $400 a square foot to build anything in the city base. If you can get them to show up.
Right.
Talk to an electrician, talk to a plumber, talk to a guy who does HVAC. You're going to rethink your college strategy with your kids if you know what they're getting paid, you know how high in demand they are. Right now, the average age of a licensed electrician is 55 years old.
Right.
What does that tell you?
Right.
They
But
can name their price.
But if you take the long view, the problem is, and it was to some degree fueled by rent control years in Cambridge, in that people weren't building anything.
If you say it 3 times, it comes back.
Right. But the thing is that so there was a big lag in the actually construction of new housing. So it was not me. And then the world changed. There was a lot more people moving into the city, so the demand went up from that. So housing simply got to be built. I'm thrilled when I go out to Watertown along Arsenal Street, North Beacon Street, and I see tremendous number of housing units being
Transformed.
built. Completely different. It used to be just acres of empty space.
Yep.
Parking lots and whatnot, and now it's actually looking like a real place.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to happen all around the area.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much underdeveloped land in Boston. It's incredible.
Well, I like to say that there's actually tons of land everywhere. There just happens to be stuff on it.
Right.
But going back to the overlay bit, in some places in the overlay they increase. Hard to say without looking at a map. But it's called C2B zoning. It's a residential category for zoning. But they raised the height up to 80 feet, which in Central Square, the downtown of our city, our height limitations are at 55.
Right.
You can get a special permit for 80, but it ain't 80 by right.
Right.
Which, again, I look back at this overlay saying, who wrote this? Why did they think this was smart? Why did they even look at the rest of the city, or were they just trying to check off a bunch of boxes?
Having served on that Envision Cambridge housing.
You're
Working
responsible.
Group, I'm not responsible, but I will tell you that I believe the city staff basically sat down with some of those specific developers and said, "How would you like me to write this?"
Well, I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have to say, like, if someone asked me to write a zoning petition that was exclusively tailored to my desires, it would look a lot like this.
That's right.
Get rid of FAR,
Yeah,
give
yeah.
me
Oh,
exemptions.
no. The original version actually did talk about changing FAR, but then you could quantify it and say, well, if you do that, you're going to allow them 4 times the density, and say, ooh, that's not going to sell so well. So they changed the language and they eliminated all references to FAR.
Yeah, get rid of FAR and get a
It
lot.
was all salesmanship.
Get rid of what's called the lot per dwelling unit calculation, which, I actually don't disagree with some of that logic. There is some logic to removing FAR if you're going to have strict dimensional requirements. What they also do, however, is get rid of the strict dimensional requirements. So imagine being given a 10,000 square foot plot of land. If you're a homeowner in a C2B zone, you can build a single family house. If you're an affordable housing developer, you can build an 80 unit building that's 70 feet tall. What? I mean, what that to me is just like, it's way overkill. And if you actually don't like our zoning code that much, you think it's that broken, then unbreak it for the rest of us.
One thing that seems to have been lost in this whole discussion is, I know that when there was one of the things that we did talk about, and the Envision Cambridge Advisory Committee talked about as well, was like basically trying to make some statement about where would be ideal to have some of this density grow up. Things like Central Square, the major squares, some of the major corridors seem to be sort of like the ideal place to do that. Used to be there were certain underdeveloped areas like North Point and out in the Alewife Quadrangle and Triangle. Some of that's actually been built up now already.
Yeah.
So we have fewer and fewer places. Remember University Park right near here used to be just leveled, right? Kendall Square, I remember when I came here, that was leveled, right? But that was built up with more commercial office R&D space.
Kendall Square is the
housing.
engine that keeps our tax base
Right.
low.
Yeah, but the thing is, there are some places where you can put a lot of that density and where it makes sense, and you probably won't even get that much objection.
Right.
But instead, they chose to take this route here, where they're really just trying to like stick it to people. And
If you're trying to, you can accomplish the same goal that this overlay accomplishes. And by the way, when CDD, and I'm talking directly to CDD right now, you need a PR person. You need somebody who can show up at a community meeting and explain things in layman's terms and not make it look like a whole flaming bag of crap left on my doorstep, because you're terrible at this.
actually, if you look though at the city budget that was submitted a week or two ago, one of the areas where I think CDD and the city managers, they're adding PR flags.
Good.
Right. But the thing is that if all you're doing is putting a PR flag basically to sell something which is really not worth selling,
No, but
I don't think that accomplishes much.
You're right. And my point really is, though, that if you have an idea, this has been sort of their problem with when they did C2, the envision process, which really is not even on the table anymore, or at least has been put aside.
Oh, I imagine a report will come out.
It'll come out, but it'll be caught in the whirlwind fire of this housing overlay. All the people who spent their time going to these meetings, you included, all the people who went to every meeting, believed in the process, whether it be C2 or the Red Ribbon Commission or the Blue Ribbon Commission, you owe those people at least a say, at least their day in court, so to speak, relative to the process that they went and sat through and contributed to either vote up or vote down, or at least examine what the work they had done. How demoralizing it is, especially as a citizen. I feel the same way. That's why I didn't even get involved in Envision. Because in C2, when they dropped that because they were terrified and quite frankly they were cowards, I was disillusioned. I was like, why did they spend 5 years with this process for them to do absolutely nothing and not even look at it?
Politics. At the time, it was just politics. Everybody got cold feet. Yeah. But, thankfully, the Central Square Restoration Petition.
Take matters into your own hands.
Right, take matters into your own hands.
Thank you, George Metzger and the Sater family.
Oh, yeah. So, but, the thing is, I remember a time when, the citizenry and the city departments worked a little bit more hand in hand to achieve good ends. And I just don't feel that is working as well as it used to work.
No, but if you're the UTILE group, the consultant for Envision, you want to actually create housing and build up the city. Would you look at all the neighborhoods that are already built out and have the most, I would say, vested in them?
Well, I have to say UTILE actually didn't recommend going into the existing neighborhoods and disrupting them.
It's a mess.
They basically focused on where I thought they should have focused. I actually have had a lot of respect for the people from UTILE. I thought they were good. It was when they started to become less of a part of the Envision process is when things started to head south.
I mean, it's a no-brainer that the Mass Ave corridor is a place where you can build up. I don't know. I just think you're causing controversy when none needs to exist. We all agree that affordable housing is an issue. We all agree that we need more affordable housing. I think we all kind of...
And more affordability in housing.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
I mean, ownership opportunities.
I have apartments I have to rent, and I went to the MIT housing office to sort of see it. And it is actually pretty outrageous what some people are asking.
Yeah.
Right? And
asking and getting.
Asking and getting, but the thing is there does come a point when when you start to flood the market with units,
right,
where in fact you ask but you don't get, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I do know one person put an apartment up a week or something ago, and what the realtor said, oh, this is what you should get, and then he hasn't gotten any bites at all. So I'm starting to get the feeling that there is at least a few hints of some leveling.
It's not a foregone conclusion that if you buy or build residential in Cambridge, you're going to be a smashing success. I have small banks occasionally call me up when they want to underwrite a project that is a little bit funky and weird. That's kind of my specialty, funky and weird. And they tell me that a guy in North Cambridge wants to build 6 condos and he's looking at $4,000 a month for a 2-bedroom rent. Is that practical? And I'll say absolutely not.
Right.
It's not even close. You might get that right on top of Kendall or right in maybe in the Mass and Main building right here for brand new luxury living, but you're not getting that outside of a transit node.
Right.
So there's just a.
So, but the thing is, with all this focus on the quote affordable housing, which really means subsidized housing, there has been so little attention just on housing.
Right.
Just on housing. It's one of the points I made on that Envision Cambridge Housing Working Group. I said, at some point, are we actually going to talk about housing?
Right.
And in fact, we never did. We never once talked about housing. We only talked about how can we deliver the goods to these specific nonprofit affordable housing developers. It was never taught. There was no discussion about housing. There was never any discussion about housing in the region. There was never any discussing. There's never any discussion about just the affordability of housing in the marketplace and what's the future going to look like? How shall we envision the future? How can we possibly affect the future? Never once discussed.
I just don't want to be the guy who said I told you so.
Well, if you did, I'm going to own that and say you're right.
I think it's a waste of people resources, and I think the more processes I've been around in now, and the more I see this, I understand why when I first came here, everyone was fighting each other, and while I'm still here, everyone's fighting each other. We're being set up to fight each other, because we don't have leadership, and that's a real problem. And I actually really like our mayor, Mark McGovern. I think he's a great guy. I think he actually is a leader in certain things. I think when it comes to housing development, it's a group conversation. And right now, between the community development department and really the powers that be, I think we are just adrift in terms of being able to get something across the table.
If I could isolate one thing, which is my greatest reservation about many of the city councilors, is that they're very good at telling you how much they believe in this or how strongly they feel about this, whether it's affordable housing or dealing with people who are down on their luck in one form or another. They're not necessarily so good at actually sitting down, hashing out ways of actually making good things happen. They're more into what they sometimes call they're telegraphing their virtue. To sort of, and that
I was told that's called virtue signaling.
Yes,
it's a new term that I was so whoever was on the internet that taught me that. Thank you.
And honestly, I'm not interested in people's virtues.
No,
I'm interested in if you're an elected official, either at the city level, state level, or federal level, is getting things done.
Yeah.
Honestly, you are my representative. You are there to do what I don't have the time to do, which is to actually accomplish something, get things done. Well, I don't care what you think, honestly.
I think, if you're going to counsel, and I love naming names, so
20 seconds. Yeah.
I think that there is some of that leadership opportunity. I think when it comes to these harder, more technical decisions, they're not being given the proper guidance they need to land a plane.
Right. So maybe we need to shake up a little bit in the staff as well too. But that's a bigger conversation. So.
Yeah. We'll be firing people in the next edition.
Back in a few minutes.